Last week, we learned that SNL had hired 3 new individuals, and one of them was a comedian by the name of Shane Gillis. But almost immediately after they announced that they hired him, he was let go because a podcast had emerged, an episode from his podcast, where he said some terrible things about the Asian community. He had said some misogynistic things. And so, yes, he was let go. Now, the update to this story that I thought was incredibly fascinating was the fact that, the mastermind behind this show, Lorne, what was his name again?
Michaels.
I know, I should know, I know, I'm not from that world, guys, okay? Everyone knows, but I don't know. All right, so Lorne Michaels wanted to draw in more of a conservative audience, and he also wanted to debunk the notion that SNL was like some liberal thing that had no voices on the right. So in an effort to pander to conservatives, they ended up hiring someone who had said some pretty terrible things about the Asian community. So let's go to some of these graphics. I'm gonna do my best to get through this, but I don't wanna quote him verbatim. You can take a look at the graphic and see what he said specifically. In a widely shared clip from Matt and Shane's Secret podcast, Gillis and co-host Matt McClusker are discussing New York's Chinatown when Gillis says, "Let the effing," and then he uses a slur, "live there." He later calls a restaurant being full of effing Chinese in there. And then there were other things.
See, I don't understand. Look, I'm not sure he should have been fired. So that's an interesting conversation. We'll talk about that in a second. But I don't see the joke, right? Oh, there's effing Chinese people in there. Nor do I see the point. Like, okay, what would be wrong with having Chinese people in a restaurant in Chinatown or anywhere? Like, I don't understand how conservatives think. They think it's funny, like, haha, there you look different than us. I got you. How did you get us? I don't understand.
Yeah, in a different episode, he and his co-host joke about hot Southern boys being raped during the Civil War, comparing it to having gay sex in jail, and describing women who disguise themselves as men to fight in the war, refers to them as flat-chested effing bitches. He also uses a slur commonly used for members of the LGBT community. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's in the context of a not so great podcast. SNL didn't do the proper vetting, so they were, dealing with this scandal last week. But what I think is an interesting conversation is like this SNL is apparently doing really well with their ratings, right? So if you're doing well with your ratings, why do you feel the need to pander to the right?
I know.
And why is it that every time producers and showrunners feel the need to pander to the right, there's some sort of racist, misogynistic, anti-gay scandal that comes out of it?
Yeah, so I know the answer to both of those. So if your ratings are up by bashing Trump, why go after conservatives? Why try to bring them in? Because of advertisers. Advertisers go, oh, you're not being fair, even though you.
Advertisers are the worst.
Even though you're totally right and it's totally funny and audiences love it. No, a lot of them are conservative, right? Or more commonly, they think, no, my conservative customers in Alabama are going to get upset that you don't have a conservative comedian, really? But they do think that way. So advertisers put pressure on.
But then they get upset and they pull out of sponsorship deals because it turns out that some of these people say really terrible things, right? And then they're worried about offending their consumer base.
There's no appeasing advertisers. You have to do the dullest show in America to appease them, okay? So anyway, but that partly goes to some defense of Shane Gillis. So is it wrong to say those words? Yes. And look, my kids are Asian, my wife's Chinese, so I'm not gonna let anybody bully Chinese people or Asians under any circumstance. But like if you're gonna hire a conservative, and they're comedians, and so they're gonna push the envelope more. Like this Confederate one, I'm like, I get I guess why some people are offended by it, but you got to give them leeway to make jokes. And so,
I gotta jump in. Look, are there some people who might be a little too sensitive and they want to censor comedy? Sure, right? I'm getting real tired of like the nonstop, like I'm a victim from comedians. Comedians who have like endless specials on Netflix. They have like their careers are going great. Everything's going great. Like your life is freaking wonderful. And then they place themselves in the position of victims. And like, can we just look, I love comedy, right? And I'm not easily offended by comedy. I'm just really bored that every comedian is doing the same thing. Every single one. I get it. I know you're offended that other people are offended. Can we like move on now and maybe do other bits? Like you're not a victim. You're doing all right. Write other material because the whole like SJW bashing is just boring at this point. It's so repetitive. And also comedy was meant to, it was a way to poke fun at people in positions of power. And like the comedy that goes after disenfranchised groups who have no power at all, it's just not funny for some people. And you can't get mad and put yourself in a position of victimhood because some people don't find that funny.
Yeah, so I talked about this in the context of Dave Chappelle's last stand-up, and I had a great reporter on the conversation that talked about it, and he made the best point. He said, "Look, as a comic, your whole thing is read the room, right? And that's your job. What does the room find funny? If the room doesn't find it funny, yelling at them doesn't make it funnier." And so Chappelle's last stand-up was terrible. So it was like he got paid $30 million to say, "Woe is me that people don't find my jokes funny anymore." Man, that's a really bad stand-up special. And I like Chappelle a lot. And so
yeah, so I watched half of his last one. And then the previous one, right before this last one came out, I thought it was hilarious, but it was way lighter on like everyone feels sorry for me, I'm a comedian and people are mean to me time to time. Like it's just, look, it's again, both repetitive, every comedian on, who gets a Netflix special is doing it, and it just feels like it's super narcissistic and putting yourself in this position of like, oh my God, my life is so tough. When in reality, the very people that you wanna poke fun at are the ones who are having a real tough time, right?
Yeah, punching down is easy, but I don't think it's the best comment. Anyway, so look, Chappelle in that special also made Asian jokes that I thought were not remotely funny. And so now, Chappelle also has a Chinese wife and half Chinese kids. So I don't know if he has the immunity idol. I don't know that an immunity idol exists.
Look, it's comedy. You have the immunity idol. It's comedy.
Yeah, but so that's my point. So I don't know that Shane Gillis should have been fired. We have a poll on it, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So if you want to participate in this poll, share your thoughts on this story. You can go to tyt.com/SNL, and the question is, was SNL right to fire Shane Gillis? You have two options there, yes or no.
tyt.com/SNL. Again, I'm genuinely curious about your opinions on that, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. But now, finally, to get back to the conservatives who are funny, I haven't seen one yet. Look, I saw a stand-up special, not a special, but I went to Laugh Factory a long time ago. It was pretty close to 9/11. And this one comedian made fun of Muslims and Arabs, etc. And you could say, wow, that's pretty sensitive right after 9/11. But he did a brilliant job. I didn't get a sense that he was malicious, and it was so funny. And so, as a person who grew up in a Muslim family, I could appreciate those jokes if they're funny, right?
Yeah,
and so, and if it looks like it's coming from a good place. But like these jokes against Asians, just for being Asians, where's the joke? And that's what all conservatives do. They're like, black people, you know what I'm saying? No, I don't know what you're saying. Right? Latinos, who likes them? That's not a joke. I mean, Crowder does this all the time. Gay people, they're terrible, right? That's not a joke.
Yeah.
So
I know his idea of comedy is like any opportunity to wear a dress and like mock someone, right? Like again, it's not saying you can't ever make fun of this group of people. It's just that you can't get upset when the joke doesn't land. People don't find it funny. And some people are like, it just seems like you were punching down for the sake of punching down. There was really no joke there.
Yeah, and so of course they then hide behind freedom of speech. dude, nobody's taking your speech rights away. You say whatever you want, you make any jokes you want, okay?
Yeah, but don't violate our freedom of speech. Like, people are allowed to give you critique or criticism. If they don't like your comedy, they get to tell you they don't like your comedy.
And people don't have to hire you. That's not a constitutional right. And you have a right to speech. You don't have a right to be popular. So if your jokes suck, they suck. And that's the end of it. On the go, don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.